Hi, this is an AI and on with the story. Chapter 21. The return. 4 years later, two figures were seen walking towards the gates of Konoha, one with bright red hair that went to her mid-back with a gray tunic on with baggy black pants and sandals. The other had golden blonde hair, but the roots were pitch black. He had a long-sleeve black shirt that was covered with a black tunic that's only opening was the front. The shirt had a white stitches on them, while he wore Anbu-style black pants and combat boots. On his face were 3 scars, each one of them the same length, but if anyone were to ask about his eyes, they would say that was his most outstanding feature, that in his handsome face his eyes were gray and tinted with a slight red, making him look dangerous yet approachable. Kotetsu and Izumo, who were watching the gates, held up their hands. Halt and state your business, the boy or the man. If you will. Reached into his cloak and pulled out a piece of paper. Naruto Namikaze with Tayuya, Izumo and Kotetsu. Izumo's eyes widened at the statement and felt embarrassed and scared at the same time. Ever since he heard that this man killed Orochimaru at age 14, he had been slightly fearful. Sorry, Naruto-sama. Naruto didn't answer as he just walked past the guards with Tayuya, who was trying not to laugh. She elbowed him in the ribs but gained no reaction of pain from the blonde, black-haired man. Geez, shithead-kun, you nearly made that guy piss his pants by just looking at him. Naruto let a small smile appear on his face. It's not my fault that I'm just so goddamned awesome. Tayuya snorted. More like you scared him with your ugly ass face. Naruto rolled his eyes as he adopted a mischievous smile. That's not what you were saying the other night. Tayuya's face instantly lit up like a flame with red as she decided to be quiet, making Naruto laugh. Come on, we have to go see Ba-chan, he said, dragging the girl by the wrist. Much to her protest, Tsunade was not having a good day. The paperwork was too much and Shizune had taken away her sake. Then she had to deal with the council, who pushed Sayuri Uchiha into the CRA, but she knew that Naruto would kill everyone before that would happen. She heard a knock on her door and sighed, expecting Kaharu and Homura again, or even Danzo to push at the CRA thing again. Come in. But to her surprise, whether it be delightful of not, Tayuya walked through the door and closed it. Tayuya nodded. I can see your observation skills hasn't gone due to your old age, she said sarcastically, causing the blonde Hokage's forehead to adopt a tick mark. Watch it, brat, she growled out before she realized something. Where the hell is the other brat? She was tapped on the shoulder. Right here, of course, a deep voice said behind her. Tsunade turned around and sent a chakra-enhanced punch to the stranger behind her, but was met with another hand. Is that any way to treat someone you haven't seen in 4 years? Ba-chan. Tsunade glared at the man in front of her before smiling and giving him a hug. It's good to see you, brat, she said. Naruto returned the hug, a smile also on his face. She stepped back and observed his appearance. Try not to gawk at me, Ba-chan, he said, a smirk on his face. His response was a smack upside the head, but the smirk never finished. So what's with the hair, brat? I swear first it's blonde, then white, now blonde and black. Naruto rose a finger. Actually it turned fully black, then white, before we came to get you to become Hokage. Tsunade's sweat dropped. Of course it did, she deadpanned. The door opened. I have more work for you, Tsunade-sama. Shizune started but trailed off as she saw Naruto standing next to the blonde Sannin. Why, you're back, she pretty much yelled with excitement before dropping what she had and launching herself at the man, who smiled as he embraced the apprentice of the slug Sannin, ignoring the glare Tayuya was giving both of them. He stood back. How are ya, Shizune-chan? Good, I hope, she nodded furiously before bombarding him with questions. After she was done, she was out of breath, causing Tsunade to chuckle at her student. Well, how was your trip? Tsunade asked with untamed curiosity. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Successful, well, for the most part at least. he said, murmuring the last part. I've gotten a lot stronger, visited many places, though I still need to master Kenjutsu, but I need a teacher for that. Tsunade nodded. Indeed, I'll see what I can do for you. Naruto nodded, showing his thanks. He was about to speak when three elderly people opened the door in haste and ran or fast walked into the room with a purpose. Tsunade-sama, we cannot keep doing stalling, the old woman named Kaharu said. Sayuri Uchiha must be able to produce children so we can get the Sharingan into the village and let it thrive once again. Naruto rose an eyebrow. What do you mean? He asked the three elderly people. Homura was the one to answer. Sayuri Uchiha is to be subjected to the CRA so that we may have the Sharingan back into the village, he explained. And who are you? Naruto laughed. You've offered the position of Hokage to me around 4 years ago, he said before Homura's face lit up. Naruto-sama, how nice it is for you to be in the village again. Indeed, said Danzo, his face stoic as always. Naruto's grin slipped as he gazed at Danzo but said nothing to the one-eyed man. Is there going to be a council meeting on this? He asked. Kaharu nodded but remained silent. Naruto held his hand to his chin. I have to protect Sayuri-chan. He thought, trying to think of his plan. He then had an idea and nodded to himself. Let the council meeting be in 2 days' time. I would like to settle back into the village as I attend this meeting. I'm going to die, he mentally screamed. Danzo glared at him. You dare try to order us around you? He was yelling before he found a kunai near his throat. Watch your tongue, bastard. I'm already restraining to kill you as of right now. Now shut the hell up, Naruto said before smiling. Well, come on Taiyu-chan, let's go home, we have stuff to do. Tayuya nodded as the two walked out of the office, leaving everyone stunned. Chapter 22. The CRA, the council, were waiting patiently for the arrival on Naruto Namikaze. Every clan head was attending the meeting along with future clan heads, meaning that most of his former classmates were going to be there, including Sayuri. I can't believe Naruto-kun is really back. Can you believe it? Sayuri said, unable to keep the excitement out of her voice. Ino just shrugged. Meh, was all she said, making every person that knew her as a friend raise an eyebrow. What do you mean, meh? You had the biggest crush on him 4 years ago. What happened? Choji said, munching on a bag of potato chips as usual. Hinata, who had grown much bolder over the last 4 years, scowled. Maybe it's because she's slept with more than 3 guys in the village already, she said loudly, causing Inoichi, Ino's father, to start coughing in, choking on the air he was breathing in surprise, only to be hit on the back by both of his teammates. Shuza and Shikaku. Ino blew the hair out of her face. So what if he really wanted me to begin with? He would have brought me with him instead of that sound whore. That's not really fair to say, Shino said, adjusting his glasses. Naruto brought one person who he didn't know that much with him, wanting to change that. If he had brought anyone else, the trip would have been more boring because he would have nothing to learn on your side of the fence. Ino, I bet he chose Tayuya-san was because he needed information on Orochimaru's remaining bases and he needed someone to keep him entertained while he trained, which wouldn't be that hard for her seeing that she has a unique personality, he finished with his logic, shutting down any argument she would have come up with. Just then Naruto opened the door to reveal himself slightly. Am I late? Was all he asked. With a slight smile on his face, he walked into the room and sat down at the table opposite of Sayuri. He smiled kindly at her, making the Ravenette to turn a slight red, but she did it well by acting like she had a cough. She was wearing a purple skirt that would enable her to move freely with shorts underneath them so no one would see her goods. She also had on a black undershirt with a gray shirt on top that's collar seemed to frame her face slightly, with her left bicep bandaged from what seemed like a training exercise accident. Hello, Sayuri-chan. He greeted politely, nodding his head towards her. She nodded her head in return. Naruto-kun, Tsunade, seeing that everyone was there, called them to attention. I now commence this meeting. Let us start with the usual question. She turned to Sayuri, will you enter the CRA? Willingly. Sayuri clenched her fist, which seemed unnoticed by everyone except for Naruto, who was watching her body language. Of course not, I will not be carrying baby after baby after baby just so. They will be subjected to the same thing, she declared. Tsunade smirked, knowing she would answer this way like she always had. Well, you have no choice anymore, you are going to be forced to, Homura said, taking off his glasses. The Sharingan is a much-needed Kekkei Genkei in the village, and now that you are of age, you will take a husband that will produce strong offspring. You will be taken off the registered ninja list and be a stay-at-home mom, and you will like it, he declared, ignoring the glares of all the women in the room. Naruto laughed. No offense, Homura-san, but no wonder you're still single. Homura rose an eyebrow. I know your missions outside the village aren't really missions, if you know what I'm saying, making the old man turn bright red and sit down almost immediately. Naruto stood up and began pacing the floor. I believe the CRA is a very, very stupid thing in my opinion, especially the one that you just proposed, Homura-san. You see, taking Sayuri of the active ninja list would be very bad, seeing as how she would have all that potential she has flushed down the drain. I mean, come on, would you rather wait another 12 years and 9 months just to get another kid with the Sharingan, even though it's not 100% certain it will happen, when you can have the only person in the whole village out in the fields as of right now doing what others cannot with those magical eyes? Putting Sayuri Uchiha into the CRA would be a massive violation to anyone's morals, especially when you want the husband to be Kakashi Hatake, her sensei. How could you? He began, but was silenced. Know this, I had 2 days to get into everything that every council men and women owned, even the private stuff. He glanced at Sume. You dream of some freaky shit. She gave him a feral grin and nodded, not at all ashamed. Now to continue my point and why I cannot allow this to happen. When I was younger, I swore to my sensei I would keep Sayuri Uchiha safe no matter what. I believe this falls in line, forcing her to be with someone she doesn't want to be with, especially someone old enough to be her father, is putting her into danger in my opinion. I swore to keep her safe. His face was now void of all emotion as he said the next few words that would chill everyone in the room. And I'll kill anyone who tries to change that. His demeanor then changed. But I know how desperate everyone is on having someone provide strong offspring and bring a powerful clan back to life now. Here's my counteroffer. Put me in the CRA. I have not only Namikaze and Uzumaki blood running in my veins but also Senju blood, seeing as how my great-grandmother was the wife of the first Hokage. Everyone gasped at this knowledge, and Kaharu spoke this time. What are your terms to make this happen? She asked. Naruto smiled. That every woman from here on out has the right to refuse to go into the CRA, including Sayuri Uchiha. Homura, not one to pass up rare opportunities, took advantage of it and spoke. Deal, he yelled, slamming his hand on the table. Do you agree, Hokage-sama? Tsunade nodded. Fine. Naruto Namikaze, you are now under the Clan Restoration Act. You must have a minimum of 5 wives that must be able to produce offspring in the next 5 years or so, she said with a sigh. Naruto nodded and bowed. Thank you, Hokage-sama, he said with rare respect, and I call this meeting adjourned. He shouted, a silly grin on his face causing everyone around him to at least smirk, if not grin along with him. Sayuri was beyond baffled. Why risk so much for me? Why put yourself through this for me? Chapter 23 Spar. Are you fucking kidding me? Tayuya yelled at Naruto, who was leaning on the wall of their house. True, he had burnt down the Namikaze estate down on the ground, but Tsunade informed him of the house that his mother had lived in before she met his father, hence the house now dubbed the Uzumaki estate. Naruto sighed, having been asked this question numerous times that day. No, I am now under the CRA, which means I have to have multiple wives now. Yuya got in his face. For the 13th time that day. Yes, he'd been counting. What makes you think I'd agree to this? She yelled. Naruto avoided eye contact with her and suddenly found the floor more interesting, murmuring his response so low that Yuya couldn't hear him. What the fuck was that shithead? He looked up, suddenly a fire in his eyes. Because I know you love me, he said with conviction in his voice. Yuya's eyes softened for a split second before they hardened once again. Don't act like you know everything, shithead. She started picking up her stuff, which has yet to be unpacked. I'm going to stay with Kin-chan for a little while. I need to think of this, and your presence of the matter will make it more complicated. Naruto just looked at her, wanting to say so many things, but none of them were coming out of his mouth. As if he were mute, she turned around and walked out of the door. Vanishing from his line of sight, he cursed before he closed the door with a loud slam, only to be met with knocking. He hurriedly opened the door, a smile on his face, thinking that Yuya had come back, but was disappointed to see an Anbu with long purple hair and a cat mask on. Tsunade-sama wishes for you to go to Training Ground 7 for your inspection. Naruto's eyes were sad, but he nodded. When she glanced at a watch on her wrist before turning back to him. Now. And then she vanished via Shushin. He silently vanished out of his house with one of his famous Shushins at Training Ground 7. Naruto appeared out of thin air right next to Kakashi, who was reading the next edition of Makeout Paradise. Hey Naruto, Kakashi said in his normal bored and lazy tone. Naruto nodded in his sensei's direction. Kakashi rose an eyebrow. Usually Naruto just called him Kakashi-sensei, or just Sensei. What had happened? Next to Kakashi stood Sakura, who was now dressed like she was 4 years ago, but now looked more professional with her cut hair that was now shoulder length. Hey Sakura. Sakura, who just noticed Naruto's presence, eyes widened as a grin came across her face. Oh hey Naruto, how was your trip? Naruto's face flashed with many emotions: happiness, sadness, hatred, and shame, but after that he just grinned like usual, like he had before the Chunin exams. It was fun, I had lots of training and met a lot of people, he said with enthusiasm. They then began discussing what had happened over the years he had been gone. Naruto found out that Sakura had been taken as an apprentice from Tsunade, along with Sayuri, who had surprisingly been taken as an apprentice as well, which confused Naruto since he thought that Tsunade hated her. But hey, things change. Then the fourth and final person of their team showed up, causing Naruto's small smile to turn into a full-out grin. She seemingly walked up to him slowly. Her hair was shadowing her eyes and his grin slowly faded. He looked around at his other teammates, wondering if something was wrong before he was wrapped in a large hug from the Uchiha. He watched with surprise as she buried her face into his chest. Thank you for everything you did yesterday, she said in a muffled voice. Naruto returned the hug, getting a whiff of her hair which smelt like vanilla, and he hugged her tighter. He hadn't realized it until now, but he missed her. He missed her smile, her laugh, her face, her voice, her smell, and now he was going to see it all again. Yep, he had missed her a lot. What's wrong? She asked him, and he realized that a small stream of tears rolling down his face. Naruto smiled. Nothing, I'm just happy to be back home, he said as he wiped the tears away. She just grinned, causing his stomach to flutter as she hugged him again. Kakashi coughed. You two should get a room. I mean, you both have baby making to do. The two instantly backed away from each other, blushes on their faces that were equivalent to the color of a ripe tomato, while glares made of daggers were being formed and coming right at Kakashi. He rose both of his hands. Hey, I was just kidding. He then sweat dropped. Who am I kidding? No, I wasn't. I ship it, he said before jumping back as somehow 100 kunai found themselves embedded in the dirt. of where he was just standing. Naruto and Sayuri were standing next to each other, both whistling the same tune innocently as they looked at a bird in the distance. Kakashi shook his head before Tsunade showed up along with all the other senseis and their students that are actually important to the story that the author is too lazy to write at this second. Okay children, today we're gonna be having a spar. Team Guy Asuma and Kurenai versus Team Kakashi. She was then tapped on the shoulder by Sakura. And Sakura whispered in her ear, "Correction Team Naruto." Everyone sweat-dropped as they saw Sakura's grinning face. I mean, let's be honest, on all the missions we've been on, Naruto was the main leader, making the decisions Kakashi was going to make. But just before him, Sayuri nodded. "This is true," she said, a small smirk upon her face. Kakashi was just lying on the ground. "Well, if you're so confident you don't need me, then go on without me." Naruto cracked his knuckles. "Can do, sensei," he said, getting a weird sigh of relief from Kakashi. He turned around and looked at the other teams. "You can all drop out right now if you want. I won't be responsible for your injuries." Tsunade got in the middle between him and the other teams. "No maiming or killing," she warned, getting a groan from Naruto. "But that's all I know," he whined, getting an evil grin from Tsunade and fearful looks from the other teams. "That's why I did," he sighed before taking off his black cloak, letting it fall to the ground with a large crash, making everyone's eyes widen. "Phew, does it feel good to be without that?" he stretched before taking out his sword, slowly enjoying the sound of the steel coming out of its sheath. "Sakura, Sayuri, stay out of this until I call for you, please. I want to test everyone in. See how far everybody has gotten with their training." The girls hesitantly backed away next to Kakashi, who was looking at the upcoming fight closely with his book actually put away for once. Naruto grinned. "Come at me," was all he said before the three teams charged at him at once. Chapter 24 Power. Asuma swung one of his trench knives at Naruto, who dodged it by flipping over the chain smoker, placing a single hand on the mon's back and pushing off, sending the man crashing into Kiba. Naruto landed in the middle of Team Guy. He smirked at Tenten before catching a punch from Lee before using the arm as a bar to kick Neji in the face. Flipping from the arm, Naruto quickly caught a kunai that was thrown by Tenten before having to jump back from a devastating kick from Guy. He looked at the bull-haired cut man. "Out of everyone here, you're the most dangerous," he said, excitement in his voice. Guy gave a nice guy smile before he watched Naruto start fighting Kiba and Hinata in a straight taijutsu match. Hinata was trying to use her gentle fist style, but each time she tried to seal one of his chakra points, he seemed to disappear right before her eyes. Kiba, who was fighting with Akamaru, was trying to hit him with his fang over fang, but to no success. Naruto just smirked, seeing the lack of teamwork from everyone, probably not used to fighting in large groups against a single person. Then again, maybe it was a distraction, not wanting to get caught off guard. He quickly took a piece of paper and slapped it on the ground right next to Kiba before disappearing in a shushin and appearing behind Shino, pushing him near the piece of paper before making a single hand seal. "Nighty night," was all he said before a cube enveloped the two genin, including Akamaru. Then a yellow gas started coming out of the paper. Naruto watched as Shino and Kiba tried their best to get out of the cube, but they failed as their bodies started to weaken. Finally they fell to the ground unconscious. He looked at everyone. "What, they're only knocked out, but you should." He was cut off as Ino finished her mind transfer jutsu and entered his mind. She found herself in someplace dark, and a small growl emitted behind a cage. She tried to peer deeper in the cage, but then Naruto appeared in front of her. "That's not polite," was all he said before placing a hand on her forehead. "Let's see how you like it." And like that they were in Ino's head, he slowly knew what she knew, what she did while he was gone, who she did everything. He wasn't going to lie. He felt a pang of depression building up in his stomach. He then flicked her forehead, therefore destroying the connection. So That's what you did, he said, looking at Ino without any emotion in his eyes. Ino had tears coming from her eyes before she ran away. Shikamaru and Choji looked at Naruto angrily. Bastard, Choji yelled as he charged at Naruto. You made her cry. Naruto looked at Choji with the same dead look in his eyes, unnerving everyone present. And here comes one of her lovers, he said before disappearing, only to reappear with his knee in Choji's stomach, causing the chubby man to spit up saliva and knocking him out instantly. His eyes then rolled down towards Shikamaru, and the second he was about to walk towards him but found himself suddenly restricted. He looked down and saw Shikamaru's shadow attached to his. Everyone now, Shikamaru yelled. Everyone left charged the blonde black-haired shinobi before Naruto's mouth opened and he let out a single yell, causing them to fly back a couple feet. Dust was now in the air, causing both Neji and Hinata to activate their Byakugan. He's still in my shadow possession. Get him. No, he's not, Shikamaru, he's behind you, Neji yelled. Shikamaru turned around only to be met with Naruto's angry eyes. How? He stuttered. Naruto let out a cruel smirk. A certain way, was all he said before walking past Shikamaru, and in a quick slash of a kunai, Shikamaru's cheek suddenly had a cut on it. You're dead, go sit down somewhere. Shikamaru quickly sat at a tree away from the fight, his eyes still wide with fear yet wonder. This dust is getting annoying, came an irritable voice from the dust cloud as suddenly the dust cloud went away. They saw him put a single piece of paper in his pocket. That'll be good for a mission or a prank, he said thoughtfully, his previous bad mood seemingly gone. He looked at everyone left, Hinata, Neji, Asuma, Guy, Kurenai, Lee and Tenten. This battle's not going to go away on its own, he said, challenging them. Kurenai went through her own set of hand seals, as did Asuma. Naruto's eyes lit up with amusement as his world changed to one of what would seem to be hell. There was fire everywhere. So that was wrong. Then it was extremely hot, also wrong, but what was seemingly right was the dead bodies of everyone he cared about. It, that's the only thing she got right, he whispered to himself. But then he felt himself in a chair and someone clapping. He tried to stand up but found himself handcuffed to it. He looked up and saw the one and only Lucifer, the man who made him a monster. No, he was already one. Lucifer just made it more apparent. He saw Lucifer grab a machete and Naruto's eyes widened. No, 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 he shouted. Not again, please, no, don't bring it back out, don't do it again, he screamed as the world around him shattered and he was back in the real world. He was on his hands and knees, tears running down his face. He slowly reached up to touch them. Ruto, Naruto, Kurenai was yelled in front of him. He looked up, forgetting where he was for the moment. Are you okay? He grabbed her by the throat and reappeared in front of a tree before slamming her into it, his sword in his hand, ignoring the shouts behind him. Don't you ever try that again, he said in a dark voice, his eyes glaring holes into the red-eyed woman, who only nodded. He released her and watched as she gasped for air. Please, he whispered, his voice suddenly filled with sadness before he had to avoid multiple blows from everyone besides Kurenai. What the hell was that? Naruto, Asuma yelled. Naruto looked at the sword in his hands. I'm sorry, was all he said before he disappeared, hitting the man in the back of the neck, watching as he fell down unconscious. But this doesn't concern you, he looked at everyone else, or any of you. As a matter of fact, in an instant only Guy was left standing. Guy, I'm going to concede the match to you. He looked at Kurenai. She and Guy were the only ones left awake. I just have more important things to do right now. He walked up to Kurenai, who was looking at him in fear. He slowly put his hand on her shoulder, smiling as he tilted his head with his eyes closed. Sorry about that. That genjutsu just did a number on me. I need to talk to you in private. Kurenai, who didn't trust the blonde, black-haired boy, man that much, only nodded her head, wondering if she would regret this decision. He just smiled at her response. You weren't going to be given a choice really. I just wanted to be polite. He put his hand on her head before disappearing in a Shushin with Kurenai. Chapter 25. Eyes opened. Naruto and Kurenai appeared in what was a large forest. Trees surrounding them as they were in a small clearing. Naruto, who had a small smile on his face, walked back a couple steps, giving Kurenai her room. What is it you want to talk about? She asked, feeling uncomfortable, especially when no one was around. It wasn't that she was scared of him doing something to her, it's just that she was scared of him in general. I want to tell you why you should never put me in a genjutsu, he said before cutting a tree down with a wind blade and sat down on the stump, ignoring the large crash the tree produced when it fell. And why is that? She asked. I'm the genjutsu mistress of Konoha. I'm the best at genjutsu. It's what I do, she said, defending her actions. Naruto just laughed. That's funny, you're not the best at genjutsu in Konoha, you're a close third. Sayuri Uchiha is second and yours truly is in first. The only reason why that genjutsu you put on me even worked is because I was amused by it at first, he said before his smile dropped. But then things got a little too real for me. Kurenai rose an eyebrow. What did you see exactly? She asked curiously. I was back in hell and everyone was dead. The guy who was torturing me, he was about to do it again before it broke. He looked over at her neck, semi-concerned. How's your neck, by the way? I didn't mean to actually hurt anyone. Well, maybe a little, but that's just to remind them who was in charge. That, well, I've never put anyone who's been to hell and back in a genjutsu before, so I guess I'm sorry as well. And what do you mean you're in charge of them? Naruto smirked. I mean, I'm the leader of all the teams. Well, not technically, but it's pretty much a given fact, seeing as how only 3 people in the village can actually give me trouble. If it was a full-out fight, he saw curiosity spread across her face before sighing. Kakashi, Hitaki, Tsunade, Senju and Jiraiya, and the only one who I'm not sure who would win or not is Jiraiya and me. I can handle Tsunade and Kakashi with some difficulty, but I'll win Jiraiya. Well, I'm not so sure about that part, seems kinda arrogant if you ask me, Kurenai said with a small smile. Naruto just grinned and scratched the back of his head. If arrogance, if true, then I'm arrogant. I'm still trying to get over the fact that you said you're better at genjutsu than I am, Kurenai said, frowning slightly. Shall we see who's better? Naruto's smirk grew even bigger. Sure, just let me undo the genjutsu we're on right now, he said before dispelling the genjutsu as they appeared in a desert. Wah, she began but was cut off. Sorry, I accidentally put 3 layers of genjutsu on us. He then dispelled the genjutsu again, only for them to be on top of the Hokage mansion, and one more. He dispelled the final genjutsu as they appeared on the same training grounds they were before, right in front of Tsunade, who had no clue they were there the whole time. Another genjutsu to manipulate his surroundings and the people around him. Where the hell were you? Tsunade shouted. Not only do you lose your cool, you also kidnap Kurenai. Naruto looked at her with a mock offended look. I did no such thing, she came willingly. I just taught her something though. And what was that lesson? That I'm the best in the village at genjutsu. Tsunade deadpanned at his words. And I'm the second best in the world, only Itachi sensei being better than me. Then how come we barely see you use it? Asked Sakura. Naruto just smiled and closed his eyes. Well, I only use it when I'm actually trying. I mean, I placed 2 genjutsus this whole fight that messed up everyone's sense for a little bit, especially their sight. Why don't you think Asuma didn't hit me with his jutsu? Understanding dawned his teammate's face as he gave a small laugh. Yep, you're better in genjutsu than me, Kurenai said in a depressed tone. Naruto frowned slightly. Hey, it's no big deal. I mean, you'll always be the genjutsu mistress. I already have a nickname back when I was fighting in the Civil War in Mist. Everyone was now intrigued except for Kurenai, who was happy she could keep her name. Wait a minute, Tsunade began. Don't tell me you're Naruto just grinned a little. What do you mean Tsunade-sama? Sayuri asked, curious as to what was going on since the author can't really think of anything and has been working on the chapter for 3 days and feels like it's rushed and just wants the story to be over with so he can continue the fucking plot of the story. Hi. You can't be though, are you? She murmured before Sayuri became impatient. Just spit it out, woman, she yelled before she clamped her mouth shut with her hands, a blush coming across her cheeks as everyone looked at her in surprise. Sorry, came out from behind her hands in a muffled voice. Tsunade rolled her eyes. Well, if it's what I think it is, then Naruto's nickname back in Mist was the Red Reaper. She finished. Naruto laughed. Yep, I still wonder how the hell they got that part from, but hey, it's a pretty badass nickname. Kurenai's eyes widened. Wait. You're the Red Reaper? She asked. But how back when the Civil War was still going on you were still just a kid, a very dangerous one, he deadpanned. Besides, you still haven't thanked me for that time I saved you when you were sent on a scout mission and Yagura Teme thought you were with us. Kurenai's face grew red. I don't mean that I was ungrateful, it was just so sudden and all I really saw was a blonde in a red scarf covering his face before vanishing and fighting off the attackers. She quickly explained. So you were in a war at what age, Naruto? Sakura asked. I don't know, around 8 or 9. It was a long time ago. That bastard Yagura was a tough cookie, though I could barely lay a hand on him, and when I did it was because I was using Kurama's chakra. Itachi sensei actually did most of the work with beating him. So at 9 years old you saved Kurenai sensei? Wow, Sayuri said, impressed with Naruto's ability even if it was almost 9 years ago. Hey, I was only a chunin at the time. Kurenai defended herself. Naruto just laughed. No one's saying you were weak, all we're saying is that an 8-year saved your ass when you were about to die. Kurenai's face turned an even brighter red, causing everyone to laugh at the embarrassed Jonin. Oh well, the spar was fun, hope this sorted things out. He looked over at Tsunade. I want to be a Jonin, he said before vanishing. Ha, another genjutsu, he yelled as if we're still in the area before they heard another whip of wind in. Everything was silent before Tsunade started laughing. You know what, I might just give him the rank. He's just going to be a pain in my ass until he gets it. Sayuri nodded, agreeing with the older woman that he would. She said before the author decided to end the chapter because he can't think of a good closing scene that wouldn't be going into the next chapter. Chapter 26, Flashbacks. Naruto and Itachi were standing next to each other looking at the battlefield that was littered with dead bodies. The outcome of a war, Itachi would say. Sensei, what's the point to all this fighting? Naruto said, feeling nauseous, which was normal when you are only 8 years old and see blood and gore everywhere. That is an answer even Hokage-sama does not know. Itachi spoke quietly to his student. Naruto just shook his head. It's dumb, was all he said, earning a rare smirk from his mentor. The duo walked forward. Their orders clear, search for survivors and kill the remaining enemies. Naruto had yet to get his first kill over with yet, but he was prepared to get it over with fast, understanding that his job as a shinobi is to kill. They searched everyone, and then Naruto heard a raspy voice which was also heard by Itachi, but Itachi just watched Naruto's actions carefully. Water, said a hoarse voice in a begging tone. Naruto hurried towards the man, and to his dismay he had a mist ninja headband on. Declaring him the enemy, he took his canteen that he was carrying with him and gave it to the man to drink, holding the man's head. After the man took a giant gulp of water, he began coughing viciously and looked at Naruto. Thank. He stopped as he noticed Naruto's attire, not wearing any mist gear and yet having shinobi tools in the middle of the battlefield. He thought before gripping the kunai in his left hand and trying to stab Naruto in the temple, but was stopped by Naruto's hand, who had tears running down his face. I'm sorry, he whispered as he jammed a kunai in the mist. Shinobi's skull immediately making the man go limp, his eyes rolling back into his skull. Itachi was next to Naruto, putting a hand on his shoulder. "It's better that you got it over with," he said. Naruto shook his sensei's hand off of his shoulder. "How can you say that? Why do we have to kill this? Isn't right," he whispered. Itachi gave his student a look with sympathy. "You're right, it isn't right. But this is the world we live in, and until you are able to learn how to fix this world, this is how it will always remain." Naruto looked at his sensei. You think I can change it?" Itachi smiled warmly at the blonde. "If anyone can, I believe it's you." Naruto's eyes widened, a smile crossing his face. "Thank you, sensei." Flashback end. Naruto groaned in his sleep, his eyes clenched shut, his fist clenching the bedsheets as sweat crawled down his face. "No," he murmured. Flashback. "Naruto, run!" Itachi shouted, blood seeping down his left eye. Naruto, whose clothes were mostly destroyed, blood everywhere on his body, some his, some not. "I won't leave you, sensei," Naruto shouted. Currently the two were facing Yagura, the three-tailed Jinchuriki, and they were losing. Itachi had tried using his Mangekyo using Amaterasu but had missed due to Yagura using his beast at full potential. "Naruto, that is in order," Itachi yelled angrily, shocking Naruto. Itachi had never yelled nor grew angry. Irritated, yes, angry, no. Well then I won't follow them," Naruto shouted back. Itachi just snarled as he dodged another water jutsu courtesy of the fourth Mizukage. However, Naruto didn't have enough experience to dodge a S-rank water jutsu powered by the three tails. "Naruto!" Itachi screamed, running towards at speeds that would impress the fourth Hokage, and took the full brunt of the jutsu. "Saving Naruto, Itachi-sensei!" Naruto screamed as he was instantly next to his injured sensei. Itachi's eyes morphed into his Mangekyo and he looked into Naruto's eyes. "Tsukiyomi," he whispered. "Did I spell that right?" Naruto then appeared in a red world, confused until he saw Itachi. "Where are we?" "Itachi-sensei." Itachi smiled sadly at the boy. "The wound I have is fatal, Naruto. I will die in the next few seconds. Lucky for you, I have a genjutsu that will teach you everything that you need to know before I die." "Itachi-sensei," Naruto croaked out before Itachi put his hand on Naruto's head. "Shish, learn." And like that, Itachi somehow transferred memories to Naruto's brain. Everything that Itachi knew, Naruto knew after he was done. He was breathing hard. "I just wasted all of my chakra to do that." And like that, the world faded as they were soon back onto the battlefield. Not even a second had passed in the real world. "Itachi-sensei," Naruto said, tears flowing down his face. "Shish. It's my time, Naruto," Itachi said. Naruto just cried. "I'm sorry, I won't be here anymore to see you grow up. I'm sorry that I won't return with Konoha with you. He started coughing, his eyes half lidded and blood started spilling out of his mouth. "I've always considered you to be my son. We've done many things that father and son should do. I hope that one day you'll look back on me with happy memories and more than a mentor." "This isn't fair. No, this isn't right," Naruto shouted, his teeth gritted, tears flowing down his face in small rivers. "I love you as if you were my own, Naruto. I'm sorry I won't be here anymore to spend more time with you. Please, when you return to Konoha, please watch over Sayuri." Naruto nodded his head. I will," he promised. Itachi slowly brought his fingers up and poked Naruto's forehead, smearing blood on it. "Gee, goodbye, my son," Itachi whispered before his eyes closed completely and his body felt limp. Naruto clutched his sensei's body closer to him, sobbing. "Dad," Naruto whispered, crying even harder as he felt Itachi's body go cold. "Well, I'd hate to interrupt this touching moment, but I have a war to win, and with the Uchiha out of the way, the only thing left is his apprentice." Naruto grabbed the scarf that was around Itachi's neck, once white but now red with blood, and wrapped it around his face, and his eyes changed from bright blue to blood red with black slits in the middle. I'll kill you, he shouted, and then Mei, Chojuro and Aoi watched as Naruto in a four-tailed state completely obliterated the fourth Mizukage, killing him with the first blow of the punch that broke the cage's neck easily. But what surprised them the most was how Naruto kept beating on the dead body, pounding it with his fist as he screamed in a murderous rage. After the body looked like a smashed red tomato, Naruto finally stopped as the tails disappeared. Itachi sensei, he had considered the man as his father as well but never voiced his opinion, but calling him dad now would be too weird for him, so it'd always be Itachi sensei for him always. Chapter 27 The Red Reaper. He's just a boy, Mei-sama, he can no longer be able to fight in this war without his master, Chojuro pleaded to the red-haired woman, but he also destroyed Yagura in only a few minutes by himself, Aoi said, arguing Mei, who was sitting at a desk contemplating. How about? She began looking at the blonde who was sitting at the door, his scarf around his face covering his cheek scars with lifeless eyes. We give him the choice. He pushed himself off the wall and walked up, looking Mei straight in the eye. I want to make those who sided with the bastard who killed my sensei to suffer. Mei nodded, understanding his need for revenge. Then it's settled, you'll still be able to fight. Naruto nodded in a slight thanks before the building they were in shook as a large explosion was heard. Mei looked at Naruto. Looks like you'll be able to do that a lot quicker than expected. Naruto nodded as the four stormed out the building, joining with the other resistors. Sure, Yagura was dead, but killing the leader of the enemy teams will only shorten the war, not win it, and with the looks of the enemy that were charging the compound, this was the final battle. Naruto pulled out his sword, his eyes lifeless as he gazed at what seemed to be more than 50 shinobi. He started walking towards them slowly, his grip on his sword tightening. Naruto-kun, stop it, we still have to make a plan to make a counterattack. Mei shouted. Naruto stopped and looked back. No, he whispered. If I die then that's what will happen, but I won't, I can't, I still have things to do. He then turned his attention back to the incoming small army, and since I still have things to do, these people will die. He then broke out into a run, many plans and formations that Itachi had passed on to him swarming through his head in seconds. Before he found the best plan, he made a couple hand seals before he started blowing out large fireballs as he jumped into the air and watched as they hit their targets, splitting the group of shinobi up and making them use water jutsu to block the flames. However, as the fireballs hit the water, the enemy shinobi watched in horror as the fireballs heated up the water to a boiling point, and all screamed in agony as the boiling water fell on top of them. Those who were quick thinkers immediately applied chakra to their skin, protecting them from the boiling water as they watched their comrades fall with severe burns and boils covered their skin. Naruto then made a couple more hand signs before he blew out a basic fireball and was blocked with a basic water wall jutsu, but the effect was instantaneous. When the fireball hit the wall of water, it evaporated the water and turned it to mist, making no one being able to see. Everyone that was watching fight all started shouting Naruto not to, but he ignored them as he walked into the mist. Many screams were heard, all being above the age of 9, so that helped ease their minds kind of. Naruto charged a shinobi but vanished and appeared behind his opponent's neck and slicing his head clean off. Blood splattered across his face, but he didn't care. He dodged an incoming sword strike and easily delivered his own, cutting the man's stomach open and using his head as a standing stool before making a couple more hand signs, wind-style flying wind blades, he whispered before he slashed his left arm in the air in different directions. Each swipe would create a wind sword that would fly and kill anyone who was unlucky enough to be caught up in it. Naruto then made another wind jutsu, blowing away the mist, revealing a total of only 10 survivors. You're all pathetic, Naruto said, standing atop a dead shinobi's body. You can't even save a sack of shit that I'm standing on. How dare you? tarnish the image of the dead, a woman shouted, charging him, her sword raised above her head, but found that Naruto's hand was suddenly in her stomach, like your stupid cage did if he died fighting me. What chance do you have? She looked at him in horror as he pulled out his bloody hand as she collapsed to her knees. This isn't the last you'll see of us. We will return mist back to its previous glory. Naruto tilted his head slightly at the speech. Will you now? Was all he said. Before he sent a quick kick to her chin sideways, breaking her neck. He looked at everyone else, his sword ready to cut into more before he was enveloped in a hug. Shush, your part is done, May whispered in his ear. It's okay, no more need to die. Naruto collapsed to his knees, dropping his sword. Why did he need to die? He croaked out. May only hugged the boy tighter as he started crying. Everyone gave him looks of pity. May-sama, a person irrelevant to the story, said, we know that there is a base east of here that hold the remaining army of mist. Shall we go? May shook her head. Not right now, she said, running her hand through the blonde's hair. 1 month later, Kurenai was not having a good day. First, she had to go on a stupid mission to talk with the leader of Mist, May Terumi. Then she was put on a team filled with stupid, incompetent shinobi named Izumo and Katetsu, and finally they were being chased by ninja of mist. Yeah, not a good day. Come on, we just have to reach the resistance compound before we can escape these guys, she yelled to her comrades who were running alongside her but were slowing down due to stamina issues. I don't think we can make it, Izumo said, huffing for air. Why yeah, Katetsu said. Kurenai growled before she stopped. Then we fight. She faced the enemy, a kunai in her hand. Oh, decided to stop fighting. That's good, one of them said. Yeah, it just makes killing you a lot easier. Maybe we can even have fun with the red-eyed girl. Kurenai was filled with rage at the words of her enemy before they all heard a voice. There will be none of that, a blonde said. He was wearing all black, the author too lazy to describe his clothing. The only thing not black on his attire was the red scarf. He had blue eyes that seemed to be cold frozen even. Get out of here, kid, you can't fight, Kurenai shouted, but was promptly ignored. The blonde cracked his neck. That's the Red Reaper. We were told to avoid him. PFFT, it's just a kid. He can't be the Red Reaper. Remember, the Red Reaper killed the Mizukage. Kurenai's eyes widened at this, only seeing a blank image of the Red Reaper in the bingo book. So that's what they call me, Red Reaper. Huh, I liked that, the blonde said before pulling out his sword. Too bad you won't be able to spread the name. One of them began, but the blonde appeared behind him and wrapped his legs around the man's neck and twisting violently, earning a large crack, and the man was limp. 1 down, 3 more to go. The 3 shinobi charged him, each with a sword in hand, before they started trying to hit the blonde. Pitiful, the blonde said as he dodged and blocked the sword swipes with his own, before disarming them one by one and slicing 2 of their throats with a single move. And then there was one. Mercy, the one pleaded. The blonde rose an eyebrow. Were you going to rape that girl? He said, pointing at Kurenai. He then looked at her. How old are you, miss? 16, a 16-year old, and you look old enough to be 30. You're sick, was all he said in a moment of desperation. The man threw a kunai at the squad from Konoha that had a paper bomb on it. Naruto quickly stabbed the man with his sword in the stomach before throwing a shuriken at the kunai, hitting it away from the Chunin, but watched in dismay as it exploded prematurely and knocked the 3 back. He disappeared and caught the girl first before doing the same with the other 2 and had laid them down on the ground. Damn, he whispered 1 week later. What do you mean he's gone? Kurenai said, her voice filled with surprise. She was talking with the newest Mizukage, May Terumi. His mission is over with. Thanks to him we won the war. He left to venture the world and to grow stronger. Kurenai's hands were all balled up, angry. I didn't even get to say thank you for saving me, she whispered. May smiled at the girl gently. He says hello by the way and something like he'll see you in a few years, May said. Chuckling, I can never understand that boy. Flashback and Kurenai woke up from her dream. Immediately, so that's what he meant. She whispered to herself before laying back down, a smile on her face. Chapter 28 First mission back. What do you mean, Naruto said, his voice low in dark anger. Slowly building up, Tsunade along with everyone with Team 7 was standing across from him. I mean that the cage was kidnapped by the Akatsuki. Your team is to go and save him. Naruto's eyes flashed red with slits before he forced himself to calm down. He knew Gaara was the newest cage and he liked the guy, not to mention he had a weird relationship with his sister. I'm going, he said before vanishing in thin air. Tsunade looked at the rest of Team Naruto and nodded to them. Follow as quickly as possible. Hi, they yelled in unison before they vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving a large mess. Damn it, Tsunade muttered. Shizune, get a genin team to clean up this mess. With Naruto was already halfway to Suna, using Kurama's chakra to boost his speed, which was already really quick. The rest of Team 7 were trying to pump as much chakra as they could in their legs, but they were nowhere close to the blonde, black-haired boy. He was too far for them to just catch up. A couple hours later, Naruto arrived at Suna quickly, not even notifying the guards of his presence as he passed them with ease. He arrived at the cage's office to see Gaara's old sensei. Baki was looking outside the window sadly before turning around, not at all surprised to see Naruto there. He sacrificed himself to save the village like a true cage, he whispered. Naruto was grinding his teeth. Is everyone okay? He asked. Baki shook his head. Kankuro has been poisoned and is expected to die soon. None of our healers can find the cure. Temari is with. Baki stopped talking when he noticed Naruto gone. He let a small smirk come across his face. The kid's just like his father. Fast, Naruto walked into the hospital and found a nurse. Where is Kankuro? He asked quickly. She pointed to a door and he rushed into and saw Temari crying in a seat next to the door. Temari-chan, he whispered. Temari looked up, wiping away her tears until she saw Naruto. Naruto-kun, she said. Before hugging him tightly, he wrapped his arms around the girl, comforting her. He was a few inches taller than her, so he put his chin on the top of her head. Hey, he said quietly, rubbing her back. It'll be okay, he said before disengaging the hug and walking towards Kankuro, who was unconscious and sweating profusely. He placed a single finger on the man's forehead and closed his eyes. Suddenly, a red liquid started protruding out of Kankuro's skin and was leaking onto the bed he was laying on. Naruto, who was sweating, let out a quick burst of chakra before the liquid started evaporating from the bed, and Naruto went down on one knee, breathing hard. Heh heh, he laughed a little, his voice sounding strained. He's cured. He then fell but was caught by Temari. That was one tough poison. He breathed out before Temari brought him to a chair as he collapsed into it. How did you do that? Temari asked, checking on her little brother, and sure enough he was now sleeping peacefully and the sweating has stopped. A little trick that Kurama-chan taught me. If I push a little bit of her chakra and mine together, it will flush out any poison. But geez, she didn't say I'd be this tired after, he joked. That's because it was your first time doing it, idiot, Kurama said from his brain. Naruto just shook his head at the vixen, whatever he thought back to her. Kurama, who's that? Temari asked. Naruto smiled and shook his head. You mustn't worry about such things, he said, kissing her forehead. I have to go, your brother needs my help, he said, his voice now serious. Temari was about to protest, but Naruto was already gone with the rest of Team 7 a couple hours later. What do you mean he's gone? Sayuri asked. Temari shrugged. I mean exactly that. He said he had to go help Gaara, then he just disappeared like he did in the Chunin exams. Sakura groaned. It's not exactly a team if he goes in. Does everything by himself, she muttered before Kakashi gave her a eye smile. He has his reasons. He began closing his book. Now how about we go help him out? The two girls on the team nodded. Before they started running towards the direction the two Akatsuki members were going, no doubt. Naruto going that way too with my lil Naru. Deidara, we're being followed, a rough voice said Sasori. Of the red sand he was hunched over with a weird spiked tail on his back. Deidara the mad bomber had blonde hair that covered one of his eyes with mouths on his hands. Deidara rose an eyebrow. There's no way that's possible, Sasori senpai. We're days ahead of Suna. No one is that fast. That's where you're wrong, a voice said as Naruto appeared in front of the group. Now return the cage or you'll both die. He then adopted a thoughtful face before taking out his sword. Who am I kidding? You'll die anyway, Deidara smirked. That's tough talk, kid, but can you back it up? Naruto didn't say anything before Deidara's vision went blurry. Whoa, what happened? He said before he was kicked across the dunes of the desert. Sasori used his spiked tail to try to hit the man but failed miserably as Naruto jumped over it with ease. And they say you're a S-ranked criminal PFFT, as if, Naruto said as he approached Deidara with quick speed and landed a quick kick to the blonde's stomach, causing him to spit up blood. Naruto cracked his neck, making a large pop sound, and grinned. Come on, I want to show you what I'm made of, he shouted as he charged the two. Chapter 29. Domination. Wow, you're both out of breath, Deidara. I can understand, but Sasori, you're a fucking puppet. How the hell are you out of breath? Naruto asked with an amused tone. There he stood across the two S-class criminals that had taken his friend without a scratch, while the other two were both panting and trying to get air in their lungs. Littering around them were many explosion marks in lifeless puppets. Naruto had taken out all of Sasori's puppets except for one, Sasori's cage puppet. It wielded iron sand, proving to be quite difficult to dodge since it practically came from nowhere. Deidara had run out of clay just then and there, and he was angry. How dare you make fun of our art, he yelled. Naruto rolled his eyes. I didn't say anything about your art, geez, he muttered as he picked his sword out of the ground. Now I'll be taking my friend back and finishing both of you off. He walked towards them, a smirk on his face. That's what you think, Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Sasori began, but you will not be leaving this place alive. He was about to make the cage puppet attack, but a single hand protruding from his chest stopped him. Yeah, whatever floats your boat, Naruto whispered before doing one-handed seals and burning the rest of Sasori with a fire jutsu. He looked over to Deidara. How will I kill you? I mean, you're missing a hand and you're out of clay. What will you do now? Deidara only smirked before ripping his shirt open, revealing a mouth on his chest. I'll kill you. I don't care if you're the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, I'll kill you, he shouted as clay started coming out of the mouth like water from a waterfall. Naruto rose an eyebrow. A suicide attempt, huh? Interesting, Naruto commented as if it were nothing. Just then a swirling vortex appeared between the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and the mad bomber. There was the man in the orange mask, or as Naruto liked to call him, Madara Uchiha. Deidara, what do you think you're doing? A deep dark voice came from under the mask. Deidara stopped what he was doing and started getting nervous, the look of fear not escaping his face. I'm capturing the Jinchuriki leader Sama, he stuttered out. Madara didn't say anything, he just walked up to Deidara, and before Deidara knew it, his heart was in the hand of the legendary Uchiha. Wrong answer. I will not tolerate liars, Deidara, Madara said as if he were punishing a child. He crushed the heart in his hand and quickly sucked Deidara's body into his vortex before turning around to face Naruto. We meet again, Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Naruto growled. You got balls being here, Madara. I'll give you that, he said as he was on guard. Madara was dangerous. He knew that he had heard stories of him going against Hashirama Senju in detail from Kurama and the books he had read. I'm going to end you right here right now, Naruto shouted as he charged the Uchiha. He swung his sword but watched in dismay as it passed through the Uchiha's body. Madara then easily grabbed Naruto's wrist and twisted it harshly, breaking it in the process. You have grown stronger but not stronger than I, Madara said, his voice in a mocking tone, angering Naruto even more. Oh yeah, Naruto yelled, making a few hand signs. How do you like this fire style? Devastating fire whirlwinds, he shouted as 3 tornadoes made of fire came out of his mouth and hit Madara dead on, or so he thought. You're going to have to do better than that, a voice said from behind Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened as he watched a scythe's blade penetrate his back and come out of his stomach. Blood started coming out of his mouth. You are not invincible, young Uzumaki, I believe. You got too cocky with your new power you've obtained over the last few years. It is now my job to make sure you learn humility. He took the scythe out of Naruto before grabbing the black part of Naruto's hair and threw him into the air before barraging him with a series of kicks and punches, each one making the Jinchuriki cough up blood. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Madara had stopped and watched the Uzumaki on the ground. I expected more of a fight from you. Even pain could beat you in a fight. I guess I was disappointed. Madara began walking away before he heard a hoarse voice begin talking. No. Naruto began, his face glaring daggers at the legendary Uchiha. I won't let myself lose like this. He pitifully charged the Uchiha and threw a punch. Madara easily caught the punch and yanked Naruto further before kneeing Naruto in the stomach and grabbing his throat, steadily increasing the pressure. I guess my lesson wasn't enough. Allow me to increase it tenfold. He then shoved his hand in the stab wound the scythe had produced, causing Naruto to scream in agony. He then took out his hand and dropped Naruto's body before he repeatedly kicked Naruto's now even bigger wound again and again and again, not stopping until he was satisfied after 30 kicks. Seeing as how he was counting, Madara stopped. Naruto was knocked unconscious. We will meet again, young Uzumaki, Madara said as he began walking away. Count on it. A few hours later, Naruto slowly opened his eyes and the first thing he was a hand holding his. He followed the hand's owner up the arm and was surprised to see Sayuri holding his hand while fast asleep, leaning her head on the wall. He smiled softly at the sleeping Uchiha and squeezed her hand softly in his, remembering the time they had first kissed in Tezuna's house. The thought itself made him turn a little red. Sayuri's eyes slowly opened and looked at Naruto's dull blue eyes and smiled softly. You're up, she said. Naruto nodded before trying to sit up, only to wince in pain and to fall back down onto the bed. What happened? Was all he asked before Sayuri explained to him what had happened, and the author then ended the chapter. Chapter 30, Death. It's been 2 months since Naruto had saved Gaara and was manhandled by Madara. He had been training vigorously ever since, training every day. Usually he would spar with either Kakashi, Sayuri or Jiraiya. The former two hadn't shown up today and Jiraiya had gone out on a mission a week ago. He was told it was a scouting mission, but he didn't know on what. That little fact worried him. Jiraiya always told Naruto where he was going, but this time, no matter how hard he pried, Jiraiya's lips were sealed. He was currently duking it out with 5 clones with a sword in his hand. Each would come at him at once and each would soon die, but not before leaving a scratch or 2 on the original. He would do this 5 clones at once. Each time he would get a scratch, he would push himself harder. When he didn't get a scratch, his training would be over. Naruto finished the final clone and was breathing hard while panting. He started talking to himself. Damn. I didn't think I'd need to make 300 clones before I actually got it done. He gave a little stretch and began walking away from the training field. Welp, might as well get some ramen, he said with a smile on his face. Then an Anbu appeared in a shushin. She had a cat mask on and long purple hair flowing behind her. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Cat, he asked. Hokage-sama wishes for your presence at once. Naruto nodded. Before disappearing and reappearing right in front of the Hokage office doors, he knocked once. Showing one of his many rare attributes, respect. Come in, came a faint voice. He opened the door. Before closing it behind him, in front of him were Sakura, Sayuri, Kakashi, a weird frog with hair, and Tsunade looking grief-stricken. What's this about? Naruto asked. Was he in trouble? He didn't think so. He walked a little closer. Ba-chan, he said in a questioning, confused tone. The little green frog started talking. I don't know how to say this to you, but I'll be straight out with you. It's how Jiraiya-chan would have wanted it. Naruto couldn't help but laugh. This frog was calling his master Jiraiya-chan. It was hilarious. After he calmed down, he noticed that nobody was smiling. What's wrong? He asked with a single stutter. Jiraiya-chan is dead, the frog said, causing Naruto's eyes to widen. What did you just say? Naruto asked, his voice low. He seemed so distant from everybody. Then, Jiraiya-chan is dead. I was his master that taught him the ways of sage mode. Naruto's hands dropped to his sides and he felt the tears building up in his eyes. No, he would not let his friends see him cry. He won't. I turned around and began walking out the door without another word before Tsunade spoke. Naruto, say something. Naruto opened the door. Did you tell him to take the mission? Was all he said. Silence followed the room for what felt like minutes. He nodded. I thought so. If he became the 5th Hokage instead of you, he would have never let you go on that mission. Never. He whispered the last word with so much venom. Tsunade flinched. Naruto closed the door and left the building, all the while looking at the ground, wondering how he could have prevented it. I should have been there with him. I should have helped him. Damn you, Akatsuki. Damn you, Madara, and damn me as well, he thought to himself. The ground around him exploded slightly, scaring some of the civilians. He disappeared quickly in a shushin and appeared in training grounds 44, the forest of death. He gave out an unearthly scream as tears flew down his face as he punched the ground. The poor trees surrounding him found themselves uprooted and falling down. He grabbed his hair and screamed again. It isn't fair, he said as he punched the ground again. Why does everything happen to me? He fell to his knees and started bawling. Naruto, he heard a voice talk. He turned around and saw Sayuri looking at him sadly. I don't need your pity-filled gaze, he said before turning away, trying to stop the tears from dropping. She frowned and walked over to him before making him turn her way. Is that what you saw in my eyes? Pity? If anything, I'm one of the only people who can understand you. I've dealt with loss too, she said, a sad smile on her face, but that made me into an asshole until you changed me for the better. Naruto's eyes widened slightly, tears still in his eyes as he watched her speak. I had to lose the one I loved too. Naruto-kun, I lost you that day. Remember the source of all your pain in hell? That was my fault. Tears were streaming down her face now, and I know that you haven't really forgiven me yet. I can tell you may say you did, but the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching, it's like you wish I wasn't there. She was full on sobbing now, her whole body shaking as Naruto watched her in shock. And I just want you to know that I'm so sorry for doing that to you, and I'll understand if you never want to see me again. And she was about to continue before he lurched forward and planted his lips on hers, stopping her from talking. Sayuri's eyes went wide. She was not expecting this. She closed her eyes after a minute and responded, kissing him back with equal passion. After a minute, Naruto pulled back, a silly grin on his face. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Maybe I was doing it subconsciously, but know this now, I forgive you and I love you, he said. Sayuri had a tear of happiness run down her face. I love you too, she said before engulfing him into a hug. Naruto smiled at the warmth she generated before looking up at the skies. You may have taken Itachi sensei and pervy sage, but I swear if you take her away I'll kill you myself, he thought. Chapter 31 Sanity. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain, a man had just finished building his home, and he was proud of it. It had taken him a few months, but it was finally done. It stood long and proud with big walls and a sturdy foundation, but a storm was coming, a large one with Naruto. Naruto was currently reading a book about chakra manipulation as he laid his head on Sayuri's lap, who was currently messing with his weird colored hair. Your hair is so soft, though I wish it was white again. Naruto stopped reading and looked up. And why is that? He asked curiously. She smiled at him cutely, making his cheeks turn pink. It looked cool, she said. Naruto rolled his eyes. I like my hair the way it is, thank you. She rolled her eyes before kissing him on the forehead, making the blonde, black-haired boy to blush even darker. Oh ho ho. Sayuri began, a mischievous smirk coming across her face. Usually it's me who does the blushing. Things really do change. Naruto glared at her slightly before he smirked. Is that so? He said before sitting up and jumping on top of Sayuri, pinning her hands to the grass as he stared at her figure before giving her a deep, passionate kiss, which she responded with equal passion as a moan of pleasure escaped her lips, making Naruto feels pleased with himself. He then disconnected their lips, much to her displeasure, until he began kissing her jaw and slowly down to her neck, where he began sucking on, emitting another moan from Sayuri. I need you, she whispered lustfully in between moans. Naruto smirked before he teleported them onto her bed where he had been staying the last few days. You got me, he whispered before kissing her again as they began stripping each other's clothes. Haha, no lemon today, but yes they did. It, go. Naruto stood up, putting his pants on as he had a large grin on his face. That was, he began. Amazing. Sayuri finished, a large blush on her face, covering herself with a blanket as she sat on the bed. Hey Naruto-kun, she began. Naruto looked over at her. She wasn't meeting his eyes and he rose an eyebrow. Was that your first time? Naruto had a guilty expression come across his face but decided to tell the truth. No, my first time was with Tayuya-chan, he said. Was it your first time? She nodded, kinda embarrassed. Naruto saw her sadness clearly, having looked into a mirror time again, and walked over to her and embraced her in a hug. You know I'm under the CRA, right? All have sex with at least one more girl. Sayuri-chan, I thought you knew that. She nodded. You're right. Me being jealous, it's silly, she said, wiping a tear away from her eyes. Naruto frowned. Hey, he began, tilting her head so their eyes met. No matter what, I want you to know that even though you weren't my first, you'll always be my first love, and I think that's more important. Sayuri's eyes widened before nodding. You're right, she said. Naruto smiled at her and pecked her on the lips, happy she wasn't sad anymore. Hey, I gotta go do something, Naruto whispered. Meet me at Ichiraku at 7. She nodded before she frowned. You're going to visit Tayuya, aren't you? Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I haven't spoken to her since she went to move in with Kin, since I volunteered to go through the CRA for you. Understanding dawned upon her face and she nodded. She seemed pissed. Go make up with her lover boy, she shouted playfully. Naruto smiled again before vanishing in one of his shushins at Kin's house. Naruto knocked on the door of where Kin's house was supposed to be. He waited a few seconds before he knocked again, a little louder. He sighed, turning around. Guess they're not home, he muttered before he heard a yell. Just a minute. He turned back around and watched the door open as Tayuya peeked her head through a blanket hiding her body. Why? She said before her eyes widened at the sight of Naruto. And Naruto, she stuttered. What are you going here? She whispered loudly. I wanted to apologize for everything and, yeah, listen. Right now is not the best time. Swing around again tomorrow morning, she whispered before a voice rang out. Tayuya-chan, come back to bed. I'm getting a little lonely. You can't leave a guy like this, a man's voice said as he approached her from behind, revealing Kiba Inuzuka nude. He met Naruto's eyes and his own widened in a mix of fear and surprise. Tituyuya-chan, Naruto uttered as he took a small step away. Naruto, it's not what it looks like, Tayuya shouted as Naruto began turning away. Yes it is, he responded. His voice had a sad yet emotionless tone to it. I'm sorry man, I didn't know she was taken, Kiba said, trying to not get hurt. Naruto whirled around, a sword at Kiba's throat. Why is it always you? Everyone in the village besides a couple foolish villagers I don't necessarily hate. Yet somehow you give me a fucking reason to hate you. Kiba tried to take a step back but Naruto's eyes flashed red, freezing him in his position out of fear. I don't know man, he replied in a scared tone. If Naruto could kill with a look, Kiba and Tayuya would be a pile of ashes. His anger then disappeared as quickly as it came, replaced by a sad look. He began trying to form words, but each time he was about to speak he stopped. Finally he spoke. Just treat her good, Kiba, please, Naruto said before turning around and walking away, and then when he stepped he disappeared in a shushin, appearing on in front of Tsunade, who had been drinking and doing paperwork. What are you doing here, brat? She slurred slightly. Naruto let a small sad smile come across his face as he looked into the eyes of his drunken godmother. Nothing much, Bachan, I just need to leave for a little bit. I need to visit someone, he requested politely. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. And who are you planning on visiting, Naruto? She asked. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Itachi-sensei, he mumbled. Tsunade's eyes widened. Why are you trying to meet up with an S-class criminal? I know he was your sensei, but he slaughtered his own clan. Naruto glared at her. He was under order by Danzo, one of your trusted councilmen, he replied harshly. Tsunade's eyes widened, not knowing this information. She was going to have to talk to Danzo about this. Besides, it's not like he's alive or anything. Tsunade's eyes widened even further at the mention of Itachi Uchiha's death. You want to visit his grave? Naruto nodded. She sighed before taking another swig of her sake. Permission granted. Just be back within a week. Can't have you out there while Akatsuki is still hunting the tailed beast. Naruto gave her a mock salute. No problem, Bachan, I'll be back in no time, he said before disappearing in a shushin at the gravesite of Itachi Uchiha. Hi Itachi-sensei, Naruto began as he stood in front of a white headstone. It's been a while, hasn't it? He sat down. I've been doing great over the past years. You don't need to worry about me at all, he said, putting on a fake smile. You don't need to lie to me, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes widened at the voice that he had heard behind him. Slowly he turned around to see his sensei giving him one of his rare smiles. Sensei, Itachi's smile only got a little bigger. Naruto lurched forward to hug his deceased sensei, father figure, only to fall through the image and hit the dirt below him. I don't think you can touch me, Naruto-kun. I am a ghost after all. Naruto frowned a bit. I'm sorry, sensei, he said. Any hope of his sensei being alive now gone? Cheer up, we can still talk now. Tell me what is happening, Itachi said as he sat down, motioning Naruto to sit in front of him. Naruto complied and sat down before he began talking about everything that had happened over the years. Itachi had been dead, so you went to hell, all your emotions practically gone, and became a monster and killed Orochimaru, left the village with a girl, came back with said girl, killed Deidara and Sasori, volunteer to take Sayuri's place in the CRA, causing the redhead to leave for a while, got back with Sayuri and then find that the redhead had been sleeping with a guy you hate. Naruto nodded. Itachi whistled. Looks like you've been through a lot. Naruto nodded. And Jiraiya is dead as well. Naruto nodded sadly. Well, this is depressing. Naruto laughed a little. How's the afterlife? Naruto asked Itachi, who smiled. It is great. I found my first love there. I'm happy. Naruto smiled, happy to hear his sensei was happy. But now it's your turn to be happy. Naruto looked at his sensei in surprise. Itachi smirked. You can't hide your mask from me. Naruto smiled sadly at his sensei. Can't hide anything from you, huh, sensei? Itachi smiled. Not a chance, he replied. The two talked for days, but then the seventh day had arrived. Well, it looks like I must go. Hokage's orders, Naruto said sadly. Itachi nodded before he began glowing. It seems I must go as well. Kami's orders, he joked, earning a small laugh from Naruto. He then tapped Naruto's forehead with two fingers, making Naruto's eyes widen at the contact. I'll see you soon, Naruto-kun. Not too soon, I hope. He began fading away. Tell Sayuri-chan I'm sorry and that I love her. Naruto nodded as tears flowed down his face. And I love you as well, Naruto. Goodbye, he said. At last, before disappearing, Naruto made his journey back to Konoha, a smile on his face from being able to talk to his sensei. When he got there, though, he realized something. Where Konoha should have been was a large crater with debris of buildings everywhere. In the middle of the crater were 6 people in Akatsuki clothes with bright orange hair. Pain, Naruto muttered. Chapter 32 Insanity. Naruto jumped into the large crater that was once Konoha and glared at the 6 figures he knew by one name. Pain, the supposed leader of the Akatsuki, the second strongest member, the strongest being Madara. Naruto wasn't sure if he could take him or not, but he could try. Why? Naruto asked as he walked forward. Why did you kill Jiraiya-sensei and all these people? They were innocent, Naruto yelled. The one with spiky hair, the main one, spoke. Because you are the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox. I came here looking for you, but you weren't here, so I destroyed the village. Naruto's eyes widened. But not everybody is dead. Some insects have escaped the wrath of God, but not to worry, they will be dealt with shortly. Naruto's teeth grinded against themselves as he saw the 6 paths of pain begin walking towards him. Right after I deal with you, Naruto began making a few handseals as he ran towards the 6 pains. I'll kill you, he shouted as he blew a fire jutsu at one of them, but to his surprise the fire was just absorbed. Crap, a chakra absorber. He took out his sword and smirked. Good thing I have this. He ran towards the puppets of the Rinnegan and began fighting 2 at once. While the others observed him trying to learn his move, he was fighting the Preta path, the Asura path, that began shooting at him with a hand cannon. He jumped forward, intending on removing the head of the weapon-wielding path, only to feel the force of gravity push him forward. There stood the spiky haired one, and he had one hand outstretched. Just give up, you cannot defeat God. Naruto smirked. I already beat death. I think God is the next step, he yelled before disappearing and then reappearing right above the weapon-wielding path with a Rasengan in hand. Take this, fucker, he yelled as he shoved the Rasengan into the head of the Asura path, which then broke apart in various pieces of metal. The animal path then slammed his hands on the ground before a giant boar rushed Naruto. Naruto made his own hand signals and slammed his hand on the ground and appeared on top of a large crow. Let's go, Kaneki-sama, he shouted as the king crow flew into the air. At the same moment, the Rinnegan-eyed boar came crashing through. What is this, Naruto? Kaneki asked as he flew around the paths. This is Pain, the one who is leading the Akatsuki. He destroyed Konoha by himself, he shouted over the wind. Kaneki understood immediately. Shall we show them Black Rain? He asked, his voice serious and dark. Naruto nodded. Naruto then jumped off the large crow and Kaneki shot feathers at the animal and Preta that were harder than steel at high speeds. Naruto then made a hand sign, wind style. Great breakthrough, Naruto shouted as he sent a large gust of wind towards the feathers, increasing their speed towards the animal and Preta path. The Preta path tried to dodge, but the hail of feathers were just too much, hitting and destroying the path easily. The animal path summoned a giant chimera, which protected the path from destruction but caused the chimera to dispel. Naruto fell gracefully on The ground, that's two of your paths gone. Pain. Pain looked impassive as ever, not even bothered. His paths were now gone. This is inconsequential, for I am God and I will not lose. Naruto smirked. Yeah. Whatever, bring it. Kaneki dived forward and picked up the Naraka path, surprising the Diva path. Kaneki then threw the body in midair before swallowing it whole. He then landed next to Naruto. My stomach is laced with acid that one will not be coming back. Naruto smiled. Thanks, he began, but was then cut off. Almighty push, the Diva path yelled as a large push pushed Kaneki away, scaling across the crater and into one of the many destroyed houses. Kaneki, Naruto yelled as he watched the boss summon go up in the cloud of smoking, returning to his world. Naruto glared at the Diva path. Bastard, he growled out. He was a problem. I cannot have him here. This is just between you and me. But before he could say anything further, a loud chirping sound was heard. The animal path turned around, but it was already too late as it found its head off, courtesy of Sayuri's Chidori. You don't think you can have all the fun, did you, Naruto-kun? She said before jumping towards him, her family sword in hand. Naruto smirked. Thanks, Sayuri-chan, this'll be much easier. Naruto then made two clones who began forming a Rasen Shuriken. There were two paths left, the human and Diva path. The human path wasn't much of a threat, but the Diva path, that was a whole different story. It's ready, jump back right when I tell you to. Okay, Sayuri-chan, he said to his girlfriend. She nodded. He looked at his clones. Now, he yelled before they launched the jutsu at the two remaining paths. The Diva path jumped back and the human path took the attack full force, completely incinerating it. The Diva looked as emotionless as ever. This is not good. He began walking towards the two-leaf ninja. But I am God, so I can make new paths. After I kill you, you'll make excellent bodies. Naruto glared at him. Come anywhere near her, I'll kill you, Naruto said, his eyes turning blood red with slits. Your threat does not intimidate me, Pain replied. Naruto growled. It wasn't a threat, he shouted. It was a promise. And with that he charged Pain and tried to punch him, only for Pain to sidestep the punch and deliver his own punch, and he then stabbed Naruto in the calf with a black chakra rod, causing him to shout in pain. Naruto, Pain lifted his hand and murmured, Almighty push, he said as Sayuri was sent flying. Naruto, who was trying to dig the chakra rod out of his leg, found his head pinned to the ground by Pain's foot. I can't have you going anywhere. He then stabbed all of Naruto's limbs and hands to the ground, pinning him to it. Naruto shouted in pain before he felt his hair being pulled to meet Pain's face. After I extract the Kyuubi out of you, I'll turn you into my new Asura path. Naruto spat in his face, watching as the saliva dripped down Pain's face with satisfaction. Pain let go of Naruto's hair and wiped the spit off of his face. Then I'll turn the Uchiha into my Preta path. Her Sharingan will help with absorbing chakra. Naruto's eyes widened in fear as he began struggling, only to see there was no use. Black flames that hit the spot where Pain was, for he had jumped out of the way just in time. His eyes shifted to the bleeding-eyed Sayuri, who was grasping the left side of her face. Get away from him, she shouted. She had been training in using her Mangekyo, but sadly she needed someone to teach her, and as far as she knew there were only two Mangekyo users alive, her and Madara. She only knew Amaterasu so far, but she couldn't train too much since her vision would deteriorate each time she did. Foolish girl, Pain said aloud as he lifted his arm before using the gravity to pull her towards him, her neck now in his hand. I guess I'll kill you, but don't worry. You'll still be of use, he said as Sayuri tried to get out of his grasp, but to no success. Naruto's eyes were wide. Pain, don't do it, please. Anything you can break my soul, beat me, torture me, kill me. But for the love of God, Naruto yelled as tears flew down his face. Don't touch her, he screamed, as Pain impaled her heart with another chakra rod before letting her fall on the ground right in front of Naruto. Naruto-kun, she whispered, live. she said with her last breath before falling. Still Naruto's eyes were widened as he watched the one he loved die. No 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 no. No no no, he screamed as he began banging his head against the ground. No, he screamed, his forehead now bloody and had dirt on it, tears streaming down his face. He then went still, his hair, blonde and black, slowly turned white from the roots up his body, twitching the whole time. My arm. It's gone, he said as a white chakra surrounded him and the rods flew out of his limbs. I had to kill them again. The white chakra began swirling everywhere. All of them, he screamed, his voice raspy with not an inch of sanity left in them. He stood up slowly, his whole body shaking, again and again and again and again. Gone, 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 gone. The cleaver, the knife, the hammer, my family, father, mother, sensei, Sayuri, Itachi, Jiraiya, 1 2 3, all gone, he said, his voice cracking with every few words. All of them gone like me. I'm not here, I'm not anywhere, I'm gone just like them. He then let out this horrible, humorless, dark laugh as looked at Pain, who was staring at him curiously. Everyone is gone, so I guess. He then began screaming as he disappeared and reappeared behind Pain in a burst of pure speed. I'll make you gone too. Chapter 33. Pain dodged the blow just barely as he jumped forwards, avoiding the now crazed white-haired shinobi's punches. It seems like your mind is broken, Pain said emotionlessly. You have experienced pain, but your pain is nothing compared to mine, he yelled. Almighty push, he said as gravity pushed towards Naruto, who hit it head on, not even moving a muscle as his hair and clothes blew towards the way the gravity pushed. Pain's Rinnegan eyes widened. Impossible, he shouted. Naruto slowly walked forward, a grin on his face promising pain and suffering. One gone, two dead, the innocent die and the sky goes red, he murmured as he began walking forward again. She's dead, he's dead, I'm gone, dead inside. 1 2 3. Dead, he flashed in front of Pain, who couldn't follow his movements at the slightest. I'm hungry, so hungry he starved me, you know, Mr. L. When I did eat, it was my own organs, which makes me wonder, do you have any? Pain was about to speak but found Naruto putting a single hand across his mouth. So hard. I worked so hard to claim myself back to be what I once was, Naruto said in a whisper. I didn't want to be a monster. He then made eye contact with Pain, his eyes burning red with black slits in the middle as red chakra came oozing out. But now I think I might as well let it take over, embrace who I truly am. He then shoved his fist in the body of the diva, which he found to also be mechanical like the others. I wonder if you can feel pain in this body, since your real body is far away, isn't that right, Nagato? The diva path's eyes widened as far as it could before Naruto felt himself pushed back several feet. He then realized what happened. Your almighty push is more powerful. The longer you charge it. I spoke too long, giving you time to charge and actually let off a push that affected me. Crafty, Naruto commented. Pain smirked. So you found the secret of the diva path. You are much smarter than I thought you'd be. Naruto brushed his white hair out the way of his eyes. Thank you, but flattery won't save your life. After I destroy your friend's body, I'll destroy your real one along with that shitty Rinnegan. How do you think you can win against a god? I control life and death. I can bring back those from the dead and kill those from the living with a single thought. Do not think you will win this battle, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto rolled his eyes before he smirked. I already had see you in a bit, Nagato. Wa, Pain said before his head came off of his shoulders with a swipe of the sword. I thought the Rinnegan saw through genjutsu. Looks as if I was wrong. He then looked over to Sayuri's body. I'll be back, I promise. He will suffer. And like that he vanished in a shush. And elsewhere, Conan, leave me, he'll be here any second. Conan refused to leave his side. Her papers ready to be unleashed upon the enemy of her friend. I will not, Nagato, I will kill him. Nagato sighed. You will be killed, please leave, I do not wish to see my last friend die. Conan's Amber eyes softened at the sight of her red-headed friend for a moment before stealing once again. No, if we die together. Nagato couldn't help the smile coming across his face. It's funny. Really how you smile after you've killed hundreds of innocent children. A voice rang out as the doors to the building opened. Naruto walked in, his blade in his right hand. No one is innocent, you should know that. Nagato spoke. Conan's eyes narrowed at the white-haired shinobi, reminding her of her previous sensei Jiraiya of the Sannin. You're right, no one is innocent. The first should know that I was tortured at the ripe age of 5, then I trained and fought against the fucking Mizukage, which you can thank the Akatsuki for manipulating him. My sensei Itachi Uchiha died, leaving me alone for a long time with nothing but his misery and sadness as I had his memories transferred as my own. Then I met Kisame Hoshigaki, who trained me with swords before he was gone one day. Then I was alone again, having delusions that my sensei was once again alive before I was arrived back at Konoha. Naruto said each step he took bringing Nagato closer to death. Then I found people that cared, people who I loved. I met this one girl named Sayuri Uchiha. She was my sensei's little sister. We liked each other before she found out her brother was my sensei. She then killed me by accident, sending me to hell because of Kurama's sins, and then I was tortured over and over again and watched everyone I loved die over and over again for 5 fucking years straight. 30 minutes in the real world is 5 years in hell. Naruto screamed, tears flowing down his face. Conan and Nagato watched Naruto with pity as he told them about his life. And then I came back from the dead and I was emotionless. At first I killed for fun and lost my mind, and then I killed Orochimaru when I was 14 because I was insane. I ate parts of his foul body. I then left the village for 4 years with a girl I had an interest in. I then gained back my sanity, my hair going back to its original colors due to my stress being gone. I was in love with Tayuya by the time I came back from the village, and then I volunteered to the CRA to keep Sayuri out of the CRA. Tayuya wanted to take a break, and then I saved Gaara from you Akatsuki bastards and killed Deidara and Sasori too. But then Madara came and kicked my ass into next week, almost killing me, he said. I then trained even harder before I finally confessed my feelings for Sayuri after I found out you killed Jiraiya, my godfather. Naruto's eyes were gray and cold, staring into Nagato's Rinnegan eyes. I then tried to apologize to Tayuya only to find out she was sleeping with another guy. A burst of red chakra and a few crazed chuckles came from Naruto. I visited Itachi sensei's grave for a week and talked to his ghost before coming back home, only to realize that a lot of people were dead and the village was destroyed. I fought you off and then Sayuri helped me, and then Naruto was standing right in front of Nagato now, who was realizing the mistakes of his actions. You killed her, the one I loved died right in front of my eyes again. I watched her brother die too. I was fully planning to kill you as painfully as possible right when you killed her, in the back of my mind, since my mind was almost gone before I took it back. In the middle of the fight, you said that you bring back people from the dead, right? Nagato nodded as Conan watched in shock. How? Nagato explained how he could revive people who had recently died by using the technique samsara of heavenly life, or rinne rebirth if you prefer. That's correct, right? If not, let me know. Naruto nodded. Good. He then dug 2 fingers into Nagato's left eye socket before pulling out the Rinnegan. Ignoring the small grunt the man let out, Conan was about to stop it, ready to kill Naruto, but was stopped by Nagato's single hand, who had slid it out during Naruto's explanation. No, Conan, I accept things going this way. She was about to argue before he began speaking again. I would like you to transplant the eye into Naruto Uzumaki, please, Nagato. She whispered softly. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Why? Nagato, who had clasped his hands together and was studying Naruto curiously. You have more pain burdened in your heart, and after everything that you have said, I realized that the things I have done in the past is unforgivable. Naruto nodded. But now I have a question for you. What do you want in this world? For the shinobi world. Naruto looked into Nagato's eyes. Peace, a world where children can wake up and see their fathers and mothers, where they don't have to worry about how they will survive the next day or if people will survive their trips. I want a world where peace is not just in one place but everywhere. Nagato smiled. Thank you. I will entrust you with my mission. Maybe you will succeed. Naruto Uzumaki. He then began concentrating on his hands and was sweating profusely before his red hair turned the same as Naruto's pure white. After a minute, he spoke in a weak voice. All of your friends are now alive. All those who have recently died thought. I sadly cannot revive Jiraiya-sensei or your master, but I could revive everyone from Konoha, including the one you love. Naruto looked at Nagato in shock before laughing. Wow, I really have a good way of saying your ass from death. Nagato chuckled before his laughter turned to vicious coughs. I will die anyway. The strain of Rinne rebirth was too much for me to do it on such a large scale. He then grabbed Naruto's hand before he smiled sadly at the boy. No man before him. I am sorry for the pain you will go through, so I give you my Rinnegan. Please use it. Well, he took out his other eye and placed it in the hand he was holding. Take care of Konan for me. She's all I have left. Naruto nodded before Nagato sat back and took a large sigh. Goodbye, Konan. Goodbye, Naruto. May I see you again in the next life, he said with his last breath before his body went limp. Farewell, Nagato Uzumaki. Naruto muttered. Konan used her paper jutsu to wrap her former friend up. She let it float before turning to Naruto. Let us burn Nagato's body and then we will transplant your eyes. Naruto nodded. Okay. Chapter 34. New eyes. Naruto looked into the mirror, admiring the Rinnegan that he had acquired from Nagato, whose body was now burnt to a crisp, preserving all the secrets his body had once held. Konan, who was standing next to Naruto, admired her work. She had never transplanted eyes before and her medical jutsu knowledge was very limited, so it was 50-50 chance that it would work, but thankfully it seems like luck was on their side. Thank you, Konan. I must go back to the Leaf Village now. You are welcome to come with me if you want. You'll have protection. Konan adopted a thoughtful expression before she shook her head slowly and a little bit regretfully. Thank you for the offer, Naruto, but I must be off to face Madara and try my best to beat him. Naruto nodded. Be careful. Nagato wanted me to take care of you, so he began before putting his hand on her arm before a seal appeared on it. If you ever need help, put chakra into the seal and I'll come as soon as possible. She nodded. She then handed him a piece of paper. I'll keep that in mind, and this is the list of abilities of the Rinnegan. Since you are of Uzumaki descent, you will be able to use the Rinnegan without any drawbacks, she replied. Take care, Naruto Uzumaki, and beware of Danzo Shimura. Naruto nodded. Got it. Farewell, Konan, and she then left, flying with her angel wings made with paper. He then turned towards Konoha, his eyes narrowed. I guess it's time to deal with the bastard anyway, he muttered under his breath. An hour later, Naruto arrived at Konoha and was happy to see everyone standing once again. It seemed that Nagato had not lied about the Rinnegan's ability to bring back the recently deceased. He then found her. Sayuri. She was alive and well. He instantly appeared by her side before hugging her tightly, surprising an eep from her mouth. Naruto set her down and kissed her deeply and passionately. I'm so glad you're back, he whispered as his forehead touched hers, a smile on both of their faces. Me too. It's not every day you die and come back to life, she whispered. She looked up at his hair and touched it slightly. It's white again. What happened, Naruto-kun? She asked in a concerned voice. Naruto looked away slightly. Nothing, just know that I beat pain and made him restore everyone back to life. Her eyes then widened, finally recognizing his eyes. How? She began, but Naruto put a finger to her lips, shushing her. Don't worry about it, please just know that it happened. She nodded slowly, not really understanding, but she accepted it anyway. Where's Bachan? I need to talk to her, Naruto said. Sayuri frowned. You didn't hear? He shook his head. No. Tsunade-sama is in a coma. She was never killed, so she couldn't be brought back to life, therefore all her injuries were still there. Naruto sighed. Then who is acting Hokage right now? He asked her. Sayuri shrugged. Naruto noticed that many people were building Konoha once again, returning it back to its former glory. He saw the Hokage tower stand in the village completely unharmed. Then I will find out, maybe I'll be the next Hokage, he said. With a cheeky grin, he walked into the Hokage office and was surprised to see Danzo Shimura talking with his two advisors, Koharu and Homura, the two councilmen who had offered Naruto the position of Hokage all those years ago. Danzo, what hell do you think you're doing? Naruto growled out. Danzo stopped his conversation before glaring at Naruto with his one eye. Naruto Uzumaki, he began, you will treat your Hokage with respect, he ordered. Naruto sneered at the man. I will never respect you. You slime, he yelled, his Rinnegan flaring, making it more noticeable. Danzo was now interested even more in the boy now. How do you have that? He asked, pointing at Naruto's eyes. Naruto glared at Danzo. Mind your own goddamn motherfucking business, bitch. Whoever guesses who said that first gets a follow, Naruto yelled, pointing at Danzo. Almost immediately Naruto was surrounded. My Anbu. No. These were not Anbu, these were Danzo's soldiers. Hey, Naruto said, laughing a little, you chose the wrong time to screw with me, Danzo. Then again, I guess I'm lucky in some sort of way, Naruto muttered as he stretched a little. These guys aren't regular Anbu, so they don't have families, making it okay to kill them. Danzo was about to ask a question before all of his Anbu soldiers' heads fell to the ground. A crazed grin on Naruto's finger as he tasted the blood on his finger. So good, it feels good to be alive again, you know, to actually be able to be myself. He looked at Koharu and Homura briefly. Sorry you must see me this way, but it must be done. A traitor is in the room, I'll deal with it. Swiftly, Naruto raised one of his hands, a grin on his face as he tilted his head slightly. Almighty push, he said aloud, making everyone's eyes widen before Danzo was sent through the wall and into the ruins of the village. Damn, that felt good, Naruto muttered before disappearing, leaving in astonished Koharu and Homura. Naruto appeared above a broken house, getting attention from everyone around him. Danzo, he said, a grin on his face as his sword appeared in his hand. We have some time to kill, and I believe instead of killing time, I'll kill you instead. Sounds fun, doesn't it? He said as he watched the apparent one-eyed man stand up. Sayuri stood a few feet from Naruto. Naruto-kun, what the hell are you doing? Naruto turned around and looked at her for a second before turning around. Do you remember my dreams, Sayuri-chan? He asked. Sayuri tried to remember before the author used a flashback sequence using the copy and paste buttons to show it. Flashback. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Although you all knew that already, I like ramen and oh yeah, my trusty sword. He lifted his cloak up to show a small sword strapped to his waist. I dislike arrogant people and people who judge a book by its cover. My hobbies include training and probably messing with people. He looked at Sayuri for a split second, a small grin on his face. My dream is to be Hokage. Make sure a certain someone comes back to the village and to kill someone in this village for the second one to happen. Kakashi rose an eyebrow, a little disturbed by the last sentence. Flashback end. I was foolish to think that that person would come back. I guess I was delusioned back then because that person was dead, but I will kill the man who caused his death, and that man is Danzo Shimura, Naruto said darkly, his hair blowing in the wind. Naruto-kun, who is this person? Naruto didn't even look back. You should know him. Itachi Uchiha, Chapter 35 Revenge. What did you say? Sayuri said as she looked at the back at the white-haired man as he stood before her. His attention turned on Danzo. Itachi is dead, Sayuri-chan, Naruto said as he began walking towards Danzo. Sorry I didn't tell you sooner, I just recently remembered myself. Hey, so Itachi trained the demon, Danzo said as he stood back up wiping the blood from his mouth, and he's dead. Oh well, he deserved it after threatening me. Naruto then appeared right in front of Danzo, his blade piercing his gut. You'll regret saying that, Naruto whispered venomously. Danzo coughed up blood before he disappeared. Naruto rose an eyebrow before he heard someone shouting, "Wind release vacuum sphere." He heard Danzo's voice shout out as multiple spheres of wind spinning towards Naruto in random directions like homing missiles coming at him from all sides. Naruto cursed slightly as he jumped in the air and used a clone to throw him in the air. As the spheres of wind hit the clones, destroying it, he landed on his feet and began making hand signs with one hand before he blew out wind bullets at the one-eyed man, each one hitting its target with apparent ease. The man disappeared once again, earning an annoyed growl from the white-haired shinobi. Come and face me, you coward, he shouted as his Rinnegan eyes looked side to side, looking for the bandaged shinobi. As you wish, a voice said from above Naruto. Naruto looked up quickly and saw Danzo holding a windblade and went to slash the Jinchuriki, but Naruto merely snapped his finger before Danzo's right arm exploded, causing the man to widen his eyes in shock. Before Naruto grabbed him by his neck, holding him up. I knew you had something tricky up your sleeve, Naruto said as he narrowed his eyes at the stump that Danzo's arm once was. Literally, he threw Danzo into a building of debris before he began laughing. It took a while, it really did. He began to get this strong to kill you. Of course, I'm just so tired of it, tired of the fighting. I want it to be over, he said as he walked over to Danzo. So killing you will be the beginning of the end, Naruto said, standing right over Danzo. That's where you're wrong, boy, Danzo said before he opened up his shirt and black ink began spilling everywhere. Naruto's eyes widened. The reverse tetragram sealing jutsu, that's a suicide technique, he thought as he suddenly became aware of everyone around him. Everyone run, he shouted. The shouts and cries of the people who were trying to get away were deafening to Naruto as he clutched his ears with his hands, closing his eyes tight. He felt his hand get tugged and opened his eyes to see Konohamaru standing there trying to drag him to safety. Come on, big bro, we gotta go, he shouted at Naruto. Naruto looked at Danzo. It's too late, he's gonna blow. He pushed Konohamaru roughly into Sayuri's arms and yelled, "Run!" he screamed before Danzo gave a final yell and a black ball began expanding, obliterating anything in its path. Naruto used his gravity control to lift Danzo and pushed him far into the air as the older man exploded completely, incinerating his body, not even leaving ashes. "En Naruto-kun," Sayuri whispered as she shielded Konohamaru, not trusting there not to be another explosion. Naruto turned around and smiled sadly before he fell to his knees, clutching his chest, letting out a low scream. Sayuri's eyes widened in shock before rushing towards the one she loved, before a black energy before coming out of his body, spazzing out everywhere. Don't come near me," Naruto said in between gritted teeth, and he looked at Sayuri, clutching his head as tears ran down his face. "Get away," he screamed as the ground began cracking and breaking apart around him as the dark energy seemed to begin forming a small ball around his body as his snow-white hair blew from the wind. It was creating soon a tornado of dark energy had been swarming around him, causing it to begin sucking things in, completely incinerating them. Then the energy began taking form, the form of a man in a business suit with black hair slicked Back in a crazed grin with pearly white teeth, the dark energy the completely disappeared, leaving everyone shocked as the man looked towards Naruto. Hello again, Naruto, the man commented as he grinned. Naruto looked up and his eyes widened. Mr. L. Chapter 36. Remember, Naruto, Mr. L said. His black hair was slid back and he was in his usual business outfit, all black. Mr. L. Naruto replied. His eyes steeled over the gray, now much more apparent than it was before. Surprising Sayuri, what are you doing here? Mr. L began walking around whistling a soft tune, observing the damage around him. It looks like I won our little bet, he commented in a neutral tone, confusing both Naruto and Sayuri. What are you talking about? Naruto asked, his white hair blowing in the wind as it began to pick up. Mr. L laughed dryly. The laugh had anything but humor in it. Of course you wouldn't remember. You erased your own memory so that experience, as you said, it would be pure. Naruto still didn't understand the man, but he did know one thing: this was the man that had tortured him for 5 years straight. Naruto-kun, Sayuri said, her voice filled with worry as she looked between both Mr. L and Naruto. Who is this man? This is no man, Sayuri-chan, this is the devil, Satan himself. Mr. L laughed. Ah, I'm so glad you remember me. It would be bad if you didn't. The experience you went through would have been for nothing. Shut up, Naruto yelled as 4 tails of Kurama's chakra appeared behind him, his eyes turning red with black slits in the middle. I'll kill you. Mr. L didn't even bat an eye as he watched Naruto. The power of the Kyuubi, such power can only be valued by men. It is weak. Naruto seemingly disappeared from everyone's eyes as he appeared before Mr. L. Before all 4 tails of chakra went to impale the man in the suit. So insignificant compared to me, you should be embarrassed, he said before literally backhanding the tails away like a fly and grabbing Naruto by the throat and delivering 2 punches to his stomach, making him throw up blood and sending him in the building. Naruto-kun, Sayuri shouted as she charged up a Chidori and charged the devil, only to have her wrist broken and sent flying into the building next to Naruto. Like flies, I don't know why. You're so weak, you used to be so strong, Naruto, Mr. L said. Let me show you true power. The civilians and shinobi who were watching the fight with awe weren't ready when Mr. L snapped his finger before they all exploded in a burst of red, the blood spilling on the ground, turning the dirt red. No, Naruto yelled, his Rinnegan flaring, using his own speed and an almighty push, boosting it to incredible speeds, and landed a bone-shattering punch to Mr. L's face, though it wasn't Mr. L's bones that were shattered, it was Naruto's entire arm, each bone shattered, causing him to scream in pain as Mr. L looked at him with pity in his eyes, and yet there was a fire in them. How pathetic. I want a real fight with you at your strongest, but you need to remember who you once were. Naruto began twitching, his bones fixing themselves. I'll kill, 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 kill. Kill, 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 he repeated over and over again. Each time he said the word, his voice would get hoarse and scratchy. I'll kill you like an insect. Like those mist shinobi, like the nothing you are, he said before screaming, I'll kill you. He formed thousands upon thousands of clones, each one making a Rasen Shuriken before they all threw it at Mr. L. At the same time, Mr. L just rose an eyebrow. Such power, it's extraordinary by human standards. Of course, show me your real power, Almighty One, he said mockingly before snapping his finger, and all the Rasen Shuriken stopped before he directed them towards the original, hitting him and causing a large explosion. Pitiful, he said as he walked over to the crater to see Naruto, his clothes ripped to shred except for his pants. This is what you wished. He grabbed Naruto by the neck and lifted him up, revealing that his body was littered with burns and scars, his face covered in his own blood. You know, for the creator of the universe, you chose yourself to be put into a very weak one. Well, Weak by my standards, I mean you can create and destroy worlds with a snap of your finger, and yet here we are, you in my hands, bloodied and beaten. You even created me and created this universe. Starting with that Kaguya woman, and then her sons, and then Hagoromo's sons, and then their reincarnation. So sad that you lost, but of course you wouldn't remember, you erased your memory. Before any of this could happen, you wanted a pure experience, so we made a bet, he said, grinning. Slowly, I said that you wouldn't be able to last in this world before going crazy like that Kaneki. Ken, in that other universe you created the one with ghouls, and you said you could. You're foolish. Leave him alone, Sayuri shouted, activating her Susanoo before trying to hit him with a purple fist. Right when Mr. L was about to block it, both of them froze. You're right, Naruto said from behind. Lucifer, maybe I was foolish, but we both know you broke our little bet when you tortured me for 5 years straight, leaving you disqualified and me pissed off. Is that any way to treat your father? Naruto asked before snapping and revealing himself in his old shinobi clothes, red scarf and everything, his hair turning back to its blonde color and his eyes turning from gray to their crystal blue, causing Sayuri to gasp in a mix of delight and being a little freaked out. He looked at Sayuri smiling sadly with his eyes closed to tell her he was smiling. I'm sorry that the boy you fell in love with was a lie. I didn't intend for it to happen. Sayuri only nodded. And you, Naruto said, his eyes shifting to Mr. L, glaring at him murderously. You tortured me for 5 years and said you wanted a real fight. Is that any way to speak to your father? Lucifer, father, Lucifer said as his eyes widened. Why, you're back. Naruto rolled his eyes. Shut up, you whiny baby. He snapped his fingers and suddenly Lucifer was trapped in a large cage. I let you out for the bet. Now that I won, you go back and you lost. No, this is not how this was supposed to end. Lucifer screamed at him, making Naruto roll his eyes again. Too bad, my child. See you next century. He snapped his fingers again before the cage along with Lucifer disappeared. Naruto then turned to Sayuri. Looks like I'm going to have to explain myself. Chapter 37 Truth. Looks like I'm going to have to explain myself, Naruto said to Sayuri sadly, who looked at him with a mix of betrayal and awe. But first let's bring some people back, shall we? My foolish little son can cause a lot of destruction. He snapped his finger and everyone who was killed by Lucifer had reappeared completely healed and in better health than they have before. Sayuri-chan, Naruto began, only to be cut off by the Ravenet. So was it all a lie, my love for you, this world, just so you could experience what it was like to be hated and to no pain. You created this messed up world for a learning experience, she said, her face one with anger. I created this world for experience, yes, but my love for you and your love for me, it was not a lie, he whispered softly. How could it be? I didn't remember being God, and even then I didn't know you existed yet. I only created Kaguya and her sons, he said, eyes smiling and rubbing the back of his head awkwardly. So my feelings are real, you aren't manipulating them. Naruto laughed a little. Of course not, I would never do that to the ones I love. Even if you hated me, I'd accept that hate. I'd bear it just like Itachi had done. Her eyes widened at the mention of her brother. See, can you bring him back too? She asked meekly. Naruto smiled sadly under his scarf. I can't, he whispered. He's in heaven now. I'm sure he wouldn't want to come back even if the world is peaceful. Sayuri rose a single eyebrow. Peaceful? Remember Madara and the rest of the Akatsuki, they'll be causing death and destruction for everyone, she exclaimed. Naruto just grinned under the red scarf. Remember who I am, Sayuri-chan, he said slyly before he snapped his finger. Interesting, he muttered to himself. What? Sayuri asked him. Well, everyone who's ever done any really bad crime needlessly is now gone dead. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that Madara Uchiha is not Madara Uchiha. Instead he is Obito Uchiha, student of Minato Namikaze. Sayuri stood there surprised at this, so he lied about who he was, she asked, getting a nod in response. So what now? Naruto looked around and snapped his finger, returning the village to its former glory, fixing all the buildings and providing everyone with housing. Now I go back home, he said, turning around, his form getting smaller until he looked like he was about 8 years old. He was now wearing a plain white t-shirt and in black shorts. But the scarf remained, his bright blue eyes shining. But if you want, you can come with me, Sayuri-chan. Sayuri had a single tear coming from her eyes as her form got smaller, revealing her to be back in her 8-year-old form, wearing her original blue Uchiha outfit. Of course, Naruto-kun, she said, her voice in a much higher pitch than before, surprising her. This is weird. Naruto smiled. It is, isn't it? He offered her his hand, which she grabbed graciously, and the two began glowing. Naruto then saw Kakashi and the rest of the Konoha 12. Bye guys, I'll see you in about, he thought to himself, about 60 years for the little ones and about 40 years for you, Kakashi-sensei. See you soon. They waved bye before they disappeared in a bright light epilogue. And that's how you became my mommy, a little girl with blonde hair and dark eyes asked as she peered up to a woman in her early 20s with dark black hair and onyx-colored eyes. Well, there's a little bit more than that, a blonde man said as he winked at the little girl in the woman's arms. Naruto, the black-haired woman yelled, hitting him softly as she blushed. Not in front of Izumi, she whispered harshly, only making Naruto laugh a little. I can still make you blush even after 100 years of being together, eh? Sayuri-chan, he said teasingly, giving her a little peck on the lips before picking up the little girl in her arms and putting her on his shoulders. Daddy, what are you doing? The little girl yelled, giggling the entire time. Naruto fake pouted. What, do you not like spending time with Daddy? He said. Feigning sadness, the little girl rubbed her cheek against the boy's blonde hair. No, I love my daddy, she said, nuzzling Naruto. Naruto smiled widely. Ah, thank you, baby girl, he said before tossing her down on a fluffy bed and began tickling her. No daddy, the girl said, laughing. She looked as if she was going to say something else, but her laughter took up the rest of her words. After a while of tickling, Naruto stood back up and stretched. I'm tired, baby girl, I wanna go take a nap, he said. Smiling slightly, the little girl pouted. Gods don't need sleep, she said before she began yawning herself. Naruto chuckled. You're right, but half gods do. He picked her up and snapped his fingers. An large pink bed appeared and he laid her down on it. Good night, Izumi-chan. The little girl closed her eyes, smiling slightly. Good night, daddy. Naruto kissed her on the forehead before he walked to his room. Is she asleep? Sayuri asked. Naruto nodded. She is indeed. He crawled into bed and began cuddling, wrapping her in his arms. Thank you, he whispered as he nuzzled his face in her neck. For what? Sayuri said, smiling. Naruto picked his face up and looked it in the eyes, blue meeting black. For teaching me how to love. I may have created the universe and the angels, but I never loved someone in a romantic way, so thank you, he said, kissing her neck softly. You're welcome, she said, moaning softly as he kissed her sweet spot. Sayuri-chan, Naruto said, stopping himself from kissing her neck for a second. How about we give Izumi a brother? How do you know it'll be a boy? She said. Instantly agreeing with his suggestion, he smirked, taking off his shirt. I'm God, remember? ANND cut. Next part in 2 to 3 days. Bye.